Broadcasting live on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. In the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the nighttime hours in Seattle, 1150 AM, KKNW. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Tuesday. Good to have you with us today. Guest-free this hour. Next hour, Patrick Cooligan from the Minnesota Reformer talking end of session. Also, Ben Shire. He is going to join us. He's got a book on Rudy Perpich, of course. In case you did not catch the story, his wife passed away just recently. We'll talk about this. And he was I do believe, the only person that did his governor portrait with his wife in the picture. So we'll talk to Ben coming up here a little bit later on as well. Brett is here today. Hello, Brett.
Hey there.
Are you, of course, for the folks in Chicago and Seattle, this is not going to, it's you're already moved on to your baseball season. We here are a little excited. It's basketball season still, surprisingly, in Minnesota, with the Western Conference Finals kicking off tonight with the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Are you excited about this?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the series.
You know what the most important thing is? As a Central Time Zone team, not having to wait till 9 or 9:30 to watch the game. Thank you. I appreciate that. Dear Lord. I mean, I love waking up. Oh, I guess we won a game last night. I mean, that was kind of getting talked. It wasn't. The NHL was worse, though. The NHL had a 10 p.m. Central start time to a game, 11 p.m. on the East Coast. What are you doing at that point? I'm not going to ever let that go. That was just like, who in their right mind came up with that idea?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I know Seattle fans deal with this every now and then, like in the NFL, where they get the noon kickoffs, at least our time here in Minnesota, but it's 10 a.m. out there. Like, 10 o'clock doesn't work for a football game. So they certainly get the other end of it too, where things can start earlier than they probably should.
And I do get, like I said, I don't think it's fair to start a game on the East Coast at 7, which would then put that start time at 4 p.m. on the West Coast. That's not good. But I mean, I think you can, an 8:30 start time in the central United States is 6:30 on the Pacific Coast time. I think you can make that happen. I don't think that's necessarily a bridge too far.
Yeah, and even on the West Coast, starting at a game at 8 o'clock, like you were referring to the Wild versus Vegas game, that's even getting a little late for the West Coast, let alone for us where it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and it's not, well, I mean, it's not like Minnesota where basically for a third of the year we skate on the land. It's not like hockey's important to us up here. No. Let's make sure Florida is taken care of. Yeah, let's make sure Tampa Bay, cultivate the fan base. All right. I've complained. Well, actually, no, this is kind of the whole point of my show. I've just begun to complain. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Hey, let's look at that complete and total moron Elon Musk, shall we? Why not? MAGA ally Elon Musk said on Tuesday he spends a lot less on political donations moving forward after funneling millions into Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. Funneling millions is not the term. He bought Twitter for $46 billion, which is now, by the way, worth about $7 billion. The latest evaluation, $7 billion. He's never going to make his money back on that. He bought that for the specific purpose of a campaign donation to Trump to basically turn it into another Truth Social. He didn't funnel millions to Trump. He funneled billions to Trump, either directly or indirectly. Billions. The comment from the richest man in the world could come as a disappointment for Republicans in 2026. Oh, no, this is what you call flailing, and I'll get to this here in a second. Musk spent more than $250 million to push the return of Trump to the White House. Well, that's in the traditional campaign donations. When asked at the Qatar Economic Forum if he would continue spending at such high levels in future elections, he said he thinks that in terms of political spending, I'm going to do a lot less in the future. Pressed on why, Musk replied, I think I've done enough. Oh, yeah, I think we all agree that you've done enough, you jackass. The Tesla CEO, who appeared virtually at the conversation, said did his virtual self start putting out white supremacist things like his AI chatbot did? Yeah. It was funny. I was reading the experts, the tech experts, looking at their excuse of why his AI on Twitter went white supremacist. And they all said, no, that doesn't seem to match. I mean, I would guess if you poured all the goodness of Elon Musk into your AI device, well, don't tell me you did not, excuse me, don't tell me that you did not see that coming. You see what I did? Hey, what was that salute again? Oh, twice, you say. Anyway. He appeared virtually in the conversation in Qatar, said if he sees a reason to spend, he will. However, he added, I do not currently see a reason. Well, that's because your Tesla stock is bottoming out. Musk endorsed Trump last year after the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, and later became a key and yet controversial GOP mega donor. He offered $1 million prizes to registered voters in swing states, was scrutinized as legally questionable during the 2024 race, and the eyebrow-raising giveaways made the comeback during the closely watched Wisconsin Supreme Court race earlier this year. The thing which is so funny is that is such a blatant attempt. You hear how Republicans will scream about, those Democrats, George Soros is trying to buy votes. George Soros is not sitting on a stage with one of those giant, clearinghouse checks, basically trying to win over the crowd. Musk poured millions into the election only to see the conservative-backed candidate defeated in the most expensive judicial race in history in Wisconsin. Musk has led a Doge-driven, there's a few things here we're going to get to about this here. Musk has led a Doge-driven crusade against the so-called government waste, directing a massive appeal in the federal government during Trump's second term that's seen thousands of workers ousted from their jobs and carved out massive spending cuts. The chaos that left him with a wounded reputation and prompted brand blowback. Axios's Zachary Bassau reports that it triggered protests, in some cases vandalism, including Tesla cars and showrooms. Musk on Tuesday said, we are coming for those who organize the violence and death threats against Tesla. Yeah, fine. Protest it. Don't, if you want to, if you trust me. The fact they don't have a path back. Okay, so let me break down a few things. First of all, that Wisconsin Supreme Court race was his wake-up call. He had the one-time mulligan where there wasn't really any replacements for Twitter. He was able to wedge his way in there. He was able to get these government contracts. He's able to get this stuff. And then he goes into the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And once again, this should be one of those things where instantaneously and immediately he should be able to, oh, wow, I should be able to make a ton of money, use my money here, and we should win this race. And he got trounced. And that should be, my guess is people in his company pulled him aside and said, yeah, there's a bit of a blowback coming here. And you had better, prepare yourself. Let's talk about his companies. Once again, Twitter has just not gone up. That's the problem that they have. There just doesn't seem to be a revenue source for them that is going to come on in. There's a lot of companies that just will not, because of the obscene amount of just disgusting racism and bigotry and anti-Semitism and misogyny. And just the hate that's on that site right now is worse than it ever was. I'm not on there. I still have my account, but I don't actually post on there, and I'm not going to post on there. And the reason why is because it's a cesspool of tragedy. That's why. So it is ugly. By the way, this is a great time to mention Blue Sky. If you've not gone to Blue Sky, go to Blue Sky. If you're a progressive, you're really going to like Blue Sky. Blue Sky, if you're a Democrat or a progressive, you should be on Blue Sky right now. And you can find me at Matt McNeil Show on Blue Sky, along with the entire, most of these stations now have a Blue Sky account. And I still have to ask this question of the Democrats nationwide. You know what Elon Musk stands for. You know what Twitter is doing, yet your first line of press releases is on Twitter. What is wrong with you? You need to be getting off that page immediately. You need to be getting off that page and be going to Blue Sky, or find someplace else at least, but you should be going someplace other than Twitter. That aside, as well, I don't see how Tesla comes back from this. Part of the problem Tesla has is there now are multiple other electric vehicle companies which are making inroads. When I was out last summer in California, the Rivians were everywhere. I saw Rivians everywhere out there. Just, yeah, amazing amount of Rivians. And I did see a few Teslas, but your entire argument for this company prior to this whole fascination with Trump was to get out there and capture that progressive, I want a green energy option for my car. And now pretty much every Democrat I know doesn't want anything to do with it. I know people that have Teslas, they're desperately trying to get rid of them. And they can't, it's just one of those things where he's totally ruined that brand. And it's not just here. In Europe, their sales have plummeted. I don't know where he thinks he's going to go with that, but I think Tesla's in trouble. Now, the one that he's got is SpaceX, and those have got government contracts, but this is the deal. This is where I think the real conversation came for him, which is, there's a pretty good argument that the Democrats are probably going to win back at least the House or the Senate. And the last thing you want to do is be out there campaigning for the other side, watch the House go back to a fairly substantial majority for the Democrats, possibly even see some major upsets on the Senate side, and the Democrats take control of that. And the next thing you know is you're being hauled into the House and Senate to have to basically defend your agenda in regards to, these government contracts, and talk about how you went out and cut, but all of a sudden all the money pours into your accounts. You don't want that. You don't want those Democrats being unfriendly. My guess is this is stage one of what he's actually doing. My presumption is that you are going to start seeing him say, well, there are some Republicans I disagree with, so I'm going to start giving some money to the Democrats. See equal sides. That's because like I said, his money is these now government contracts, plus the insane amount of database information he stole about every American in this country. Trust me, he's going to be selling that information for decades and making billions, if not trillions, off of that. But the government contracts he's got, there's a lot of money coming into his way. And I think he's already starting to realize the quickest way for that to go away is all of a sudden he becomes a real partisan hack coming into the midterm election. So I think this is stage one of him walking back. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show.
When was the last time you had your roof inspected for extreme weather and hail damage? This is Chad, owner of AM 950, to talk about the exterior construction company I trust, Snap Construction. If you've noticed new roofing projects in your neighborhood, your home was likely hit by hail last summer and experienced damage. Snap Construction is helping homeowners like you, and they're the roofing specialists I trust. They are the most well-reviewed contractor in the Twin Cities and have a ton of positive customer reviews from homeowners just like you. Even better, Snap Construction's installations are backed by a lifetime warranty, so you know you're dealing with a qualified roofing expert. You want to work with a company that will be here for a long time after the work is done. Snap Construction has handled thousands of claims and will help you through the process. Do yourself a favor and get a free roofing inspection so you have the facts and peace of mind you deserve. Call Snap Construction today at 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP. Or visit snapconstruction.com.
Hi, this is Ken Hageland, host of Living Healthy and Aging Well, inviting you to listen to our live call-in talk show airing every Saturday from noon to 1, where we talk about your health and your life and provide insights you need to know to live and age well. Each week, we talk with guests who provide answers to important questions regarding healthcare, elder care, end-of-life care, and self-care for caregivers, and help you and your loved ones plan for the future and enjoy your highest quality of life today. Please join us every Saturday from noon to 1 on AM 950 for Living Healthy and Aging Well.
Hey, this is John Parker with The Gailey Show. Who knew 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, that social media CEOs would deliberately turn their platforms into far-right engines of fascism? TikTok shares your personal data with China's authoritarian government. Twitter is the primary site for MAGA organizing and spreading their propaganda. And now Facebook, Instagram, and Threads have not only stopped fact-checking far-right disinformation and lies, but they wrote the following policies, telling its users that they can post, and I quote, allegations of mental illness or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation. And they can also explicitly refer to women as, and again I quote, household objects, or property. So AM 950 and The Gaily Show have moved to Blue Sky, where far-right extremists are banned on site, there is no algorithm, and social media is, well, sociable. Plus, we've created a listener starter pack just for you. Use our starter pack to immediately follow all of your favorite AM 950 shows already on Blue Sky. We're at thegailyshow.org. That's at thegailyshow.org on Blue Sky.
This is Andy Addo, your host of Twin Cities Pride Amplified, inviting you to join us this Saturday at 3 p.m. as we visit with our Director of Programming, Kelsey Alto. June is approaching fast, and we have so many great things planned. We'll run them all down for you, from Cheers to Pride, Family Fun Day, Youth Night, and so much more. We'll give you all the details. That's this Saturday at 3 p.m., right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
I've got mysterious stranger scarred in my contact list.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you with us here today, 952-946-6205. So I want to bring up one thing I wanted to talk about from 2 weeks ago. I was down in South Carolina for a memorial for my brother. And I was staying at my other brother's house down there. And if you've never been to kind of the southeastern United States, it's woodsy. It grows fast and thick there. It really is pretty impressive how how thick the woods can be there. And if you've ever driven on like I-95 on the East Coast, sometimes you're just you're in the middle of a fairly populated area and you don't see a thing. Because it's just the trees and the woods are so thick there that even though it's 100 yards to, residential neighborhoods, you don't see a thing. This neighbor's house, I'd been down there a few times over the last few years, and it had slowly gotten wildly more out of control. It was just overgrown. And while we were there, a crew came on out, and in 8 hours, turned what was a fledgling forest into a yard again. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because we don't understand the daily impact that's going to happen because of all this stuff. The more stories today of ICE agents, the ICE Gestapo sitting over at various courthouses, building sites, looking to arrest anyone they can. It's ugly. And it really is no longer just one of those things where it's ICE vehicles. You have a lot of these right-wing county sheriffs who have volunteered to deputize themselves as ICE Gestapo and are rounding people up. And I've talked to contractors who have said, oh yeah, we're down about a third of our staff. And and they have to keep telling the other guys, don't worry. We're going to do what we can to, make sure you're okay here. You're not getting rounded up, but they don't really know what they can do if someone shows up at the job site. There's not really much they can do. I've also heard that there's already in some of these farming communities, especially farming communities that have developed these large Hispanic Latino populations within them who work the seasonal work, who go out there and help in the planting season and help at the picking season. And they are there. They're not there anymore. And I think it's because they realize in a community like that, the minorities, because it's Whitey McWhitey town, they stand out very, very, clearly, and they don't want to be a target. And this concern that they have is planting season is not as tough, but when it comes to harvesting season, they need these workers. And there are some real big concerns that there's not going to be nearly enough go around. And then it becomes basically a bidding war. And especially the smaller and mid-level farmers know that the big corporate farms are going to basically be able to hire all the workers away from them. And so we're looking at a big mess out there. I had a friend in Ireland, of all places, that he talked about how much he appreciated the migration into Ireland in the 1990s, when it became it was the only English-speaking country that picked up the euro. Henceforth, it became a landing spot for a lot of American businesses to come into the European Union. And so there was all of a sudden this influx of business and growth, and it went really well. And then all of a sudden there came a lot of immigrants. And he said that there used to be, if you wanted to get your floor fixed in an Irish house and you hired some guy to come and do it, it might get done in like 3 weeks. Might. I mean, if there's a few pints of Guinness that were a little bit more appetizing than going and doing the work, well, guess what? That was going to get done first. He said almost immediately, all of a sudden, these immigrant laborers that wanted to work all of a sudden were there, and you'd call someone, it's like, well, I'll be there tomorrow. And like, wait a second here. That's tomorrow. What? Okay. And they would do it, and they do a great job, and off they went. And all of a sudden it kind of was a wake-up call that they it kind of tolerated a lot of kind of slackiness that was going on out there. This is where I'm going to carry this back to what happened in the South. I mean, the down in Beaufort, South Carolina, it's called low country. But what the locals say is it's slow country. That if you want to get something done, it's, I suppose I can be out here sometime between tomorrow and October, and that sort of thing. But here you had a group of what appeared to be minority people that might have been documented, might not have been documented, don't know, but they worked their asses off. They cleared. I can't tell you how good that yard looked, how bad it looked forever. I mean, it looked like next to my brother was like a forest, and it looked immaculate after they were done in like 8 hours. And let's face it, these are the jobs that white Americans just do not want to do anymore. And they go on out and they do it. And not only do they do it better than most of the people here, the slow country stuff. Like, I'll be there eventually. That sort of thing. And I don't think we understand the real impact that stuff like that, which no one really thought that was a big deal. Stuff like that, when that stuff disappears and all of a sudden, you're not going to see ma and pa head out there and start to clear it their own. It's just not going to get done. The quality of life for a lot of people is dramatically going to change. And I get it. You fall back to the whole slow country thing, but the reality is everywhere I look, I see the value of immigrant labor, documented or undocumented, in my life. And I appreciate everyone that's doing it, because if you want to come here and, clean out yard waste or scrub a toilet or do anything like that, go to work in our farm fields, you're going to work as a contractor, you're going to go roof a house in Duluth, Minnesota in winter. God bless you. Welcome aboard. I hope you can stay. Because that is what America is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the people that come here and can get a chance, not, show me your papers and get out. There's other countries that have been like that over the last 100 years. And trust me, I don't think we want to go any further down this road. But it was just an observation I made. I will also make this other observation here, completely unrelated, but you get the point. The top Democrat of the House Judiciary Committee plans to grill the Department of Justice on its decision to charge Representative LaMonica McIver from New Jersey with assault on law enforcement. Democrats have roundly condemned the charges of intimidation effort aimed at shilling their oversight of the Trump administration's deportation policies. Jamie Raskin told Axios he's definitely, but will be questioning the Justice Department on the decision behind the charges, potentially in the form of a letter. A letter, you say? It's a terribly troubling situation. It's an absolute assault on congressional powers, said of the assault charges against McIver. Here's the deal. She's being targeted because she's a black woman. That's it. I mean, that's the entire thing. There's no nuance here. She's being targeted because she's a black woman. And that Trump administration hates black women because they generally don't vote for Trump. So this is all, I mean, this is quite literally a trumped up charge. But the only reason she's being persecuted is because she's a black woman, continuing their stretch of how they feel about minorities. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
This June, Twin Cities Gay Men's Chorus serves diva worship for their Leading Ladies Divas of Broadway Pride concert. Feel the heat, the passion, the undeniable power of music that sets your soul on fire. From the sultry seduction of Bring on the Men, to the soul-stirring wisdom of Children Will Listen, to the joyous, rebellious charm of Do Re Mi. With dazzling harmonies, show-stopping flair, and a touch or more of jazz hands, the Twin Cities Gay Men's Chorus will take you on a thrilling, emotional, and downright life-changing musical journey. It's the electric energy of 180 voices, bold, unapologetic, and dripping with Broadway brilliance. This isn't just a concert, it's a celebration of pride, power, and the irresistible magic of Broadway. The dates are June 21st and 22nd at the Ordway. Tickets start at $28. Get yours today at tcgmc.org. That's tcgmc.org. It's entertainment worth coming out for.
Hey, Minnesota, it's your favorite sexy liberal. Join me and my fellow cohorts in liberal justice weekdays from 8 to 11 on AM 950 KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
You're listening to AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Paul Metza, host of the Wall of Power Radio Hour. We have been on the air on AM 950 for 10 years. We feature cool people from all walks of life in all 50 states. We've had musicians, politicians, actors, poets, people with great stories or a tale to tell. Tune in every Saturday night at 6 p.m. on AM 950, and podcasts are available on all streaming services.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
With a look at your AM 950 forecast, this is Adam. Chances of rain today and a high of 47 under cloudy skies. Tonight, the rain will continue and a low of 45. Let Natural Lawn handle your lawn care so you can enjoy your lawn. Feeds the soil naturally with fewer unnecessary chemicals, safer products for kids, pets, and the planet. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to naturallawn.com.
Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, in the nighttime hours in Seattle, 1150 AM KKNW, and of course in Minneapolis, St. Paul, on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, AM 950 KTNF. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Nice to have you with us here today, 952-946-6205. So I want to, this next story is going to go in two different directions, all right? And I'm trying to figure out which way I want to go first. I know which way I'm going to go first. All right, I'm going to go first. Here is the initial story. And then there are going to be two follow-up stories to this, which just... David Hogg is right. There needs to be a wholesale change at the Democratic Party, and it needs to understand that the way that they're doing things right now is so pathetic, it's hard to even comprehend. And it really is. And by the time we get to the end of this, you'll understand where I'm going with this, okay? Despite concerns that it does not address U.S. President Donald Trump's ties to the crypto industry, 16 Democrats in the Senate voted with most of the Republicans on Monday to advance a bill that creates a regulatory framework for stable coins, digital assets whose value is tied to traditional currency such as the U.S. dollar or a commodity like gold. The industry-backed Gilding and Established National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins, Genius, really. The Genius Act passed a cloture vote with support from Gillibrand, the original co-sponsor of the bill, also Brooks out of Maryland, Gallego out of Arizona, Warner out of Virginia, Blunt out of Rochester, out of Delaware, Cortez Masto out of Nevada, Ray Lujan out of New Mexico, Adam Schiff out of California, Cory Booker out of New Jersey, Slotkin out of Michigan, Fetterman out of Pennsylvania, Hassan out of New Hampshire, Heinrich out of New Mexico, Ossoff out of Georgia, Padilla out of California, and Rosen out of Nevada. The bill is now teed up for a Senate debate. So they basically helped override the filibuster here. I will say, I think we all can feel pretty good, if you're listening to my voice, that Illinois, Minnesota, and Washington did not have one of our senators vote for this bill. Back in February, a coalition of consumer groups and watchdogs warned the bill would accelerate the convergence of big tech and big finance and is a necessary prerequisite to future giveaways to the crypto industry. In early May, the legislation faltered after several crypto-friendly Democrats raised concern that it did not contain strong enough provisions around anti-money laundering, national security, and other issues. Pro-crypto Democrats have said the version of the bill that they considered on Monday contains a number of revisions that address those concerns, including more consumer protections and some limitations on big tech's ability to issue stablecoins. However, Elizabeth Warren, one of the sane people left in D.C., the top Democrat in the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, said on the floor of the Senate on Monday that the bill's basic flaws remain unaddressed. Warren is concerned in particular the bill does not rein in the president's crypto corruption, which is pretty obscene. Trump and his family have already pocketed hundreds of millions of dollars from his crypto ventures, and they stand to make hundreds of millions or more from his stablecoin USD1 if this bill passes, Warren says. Passing this bill means we can expect more anonymous buyers, big companies, and foreign governments to use the president's stablecoin as both a shadowy bank account shielded from government oversight and as a way to pay off the presidential personally. If Elizabeth Warren is raising a red flag on this, there shouldn't be a damn Democrat voting along with this. USD1 is a stablecoin developed by the Trump family crypto firm World Liberty Financial. God, everything's just about that statement just screams middle of the night infomercial, doesn't it? I'm Tom Selleck for USD1, a stable coin that's from the World Liberty Financial. Seriously. Oh, the cornballer returns. A few weeks ago, it was announced that USD1 would be issued for a $2 billion deal between an investment firm established by the government of Abu Dhabi, MGX, and the world's largest crypto exchange, Binance. Okay. Now, some people might be a little concerned about the fact that this seems to be ripe for corruption. Let me tell you, it's already ripe for corruption. Let me go with the second story from today. A second story. We're going down one path now. I'm going to come back and I'll take a second path, okay? Justin's son says he's the top Trump holder and will attend a private dinner with Donald Trump and a VIP reception. What I'm reading to you, by the way, what I'm reading to you right now are the bullet points for this story, and the bullet points for this story couldn't explain better why this already is a national nightmare. Justin's son says he's the top Trump holder and will attend a private dinner with Donald Trump and a VIP reception. Son holds $18.6 million in Trump tokens. Yeah, crypto. On top of $75 million in Trump World Liberty Financial, a crypto platform that directs 75% of its revenue to Trump-owned entities. Wow. The Tron blockchain founder is in talks with the SEC to resolve civil fraud charges. Elizabeth Warren, what was the line she used here? Passing this bill, we can expect more anonymous buyers, big companies, and foreign governments to use the president's stablecoin as both a shadowy bank account shielded from government oversight and as a way to pay the president personally. They're not doing it anonymously. They're doing it in our faces. Here is a guy, this son guy, Justin's son. Here he is outright saying, yep, I'm buying a ticket next to the president. Oh, by the way, not only are you buying all the Trump tokens, but you're also buying $75 million worth of access through Trump World Liberty Financial. He gets to sit next to Donald Trump at a dinner, and I guarantee you the first thing out of his mouth, well, no, the first thing out of it, he doesn't have to say a thing. Donnie T is going to come and sit in there. Hello there. I hear you're a big fan. But don't worry about that SEC thing. I've made some calls, and they're going to announce that you're an innocent little pup. Thank you so much for everything you do. Oh, by the way, have I told you about my new, this wonderful thing? It's a stable coin, USD1. You want to buy a ton of that. They're not doing it anonymously. He's getting a plane from Qatar. He's getting a plane from Qatar. He's just getting, and if you didn't hear the story, he didn't get this as a gift. His administration went to the Qatari government and said, hey, we want that plane. And the Qatari government is like, instant access to the president of the United States? Done. He asked for the bribe, and they gave him the bribe. Mind you, every Republican in the House and the Senate screamed at the top of their lungs about Hunter Biden having undue access to the president with this whole made-up laptop story, Burisma, which was, once again, is completely fake. And it was funny because, like, it was the last week of the presidency, they all admitted, oh, yeah, by the way, that laptop was just a fraudulent thing. The same laptop they'd been screaming about for years that said was the irrefutable proof, they all admitted, yep, it was a fraud. But they had investigation after investigation because there's an appearance of impropriety here, and we can't have an appearance of impropriety. Donald Trump asked the Qatari government to give me that plane, and they do. That sure as hell sounds like impropriety. Here's this guy buying his way to the president so he can basically make a pitch, which he doesn't even have to make. The president will tell you the SEC thing is going to go away. We're going to get rid of that for you. This is not stuff that has to be done in the darkness of rooms. This is, hey, it's a barbecue. Here we go. Here's your bag of cash. Is those hot dogs over there? Great. You can use the cash to wipe your mouth. There you go. The Trump family is using this as an absolute all-time cash grab. And the fact that the Republican Party is doing nothing to stop what is not behind closed doors or even made up fantastical conspiracy theories featuring Burisma and Hunter Biden. No, this is in front of their face, and they say, well, he's Donald, because you're a bunch of absolute crap people. You're horrible people. Let me backtrack, go to point 2 here, because I think it is important that we discuss point 2, which brings me to another story. Democrats are demanding to hear from Senator Cory Booker, who defied his party to become the only Democrat voting to confirm Charles Kushner as ambassador to France. Booker joined 50 Republicans to confirm Kushner, with 45 Democrats voting no. Kushner is the father of Ivanka Trump's husband, Jared Kushner, Johnny Personality. The family patriarch was sentenced in 2005 to 2 years in prison for pleading guilty on 16 counts of tax fraud, witness retaliation, and making false statements to the FEC. And now he's the ambassador to France. The New Jersey Globe noted that Booker and Charles Kushner have a long-standing relationship, that Kushner donated to Booker's unsuccessful New York mayor bid in 2002 and went on to become mayor in 2006. You see, money buys Democrats just as easy as it buys Republicans. The sad part is that Democrats, they can get bought by $20. The Democrats get bought by $20. Republicans, they get bought. You have to pay more money to buy them off. And then if they still actually find their conscience, then they'll primary them. 20 Democrat. And was it 20? It was, where is it here? It was 16 Democrats voted with the Republicans to advance this bill to basically just give Donald Trump a ton more money. Just a ton more money, right in everyone's face. Gillibrand, Also Brooks, Gallego, Warner, Blunt Rochester, Cortez Musto, Ray Alujan, Schiff, Booker, Slotkin, Fetterman, Hassan, Heinrich, Ossoff, Padilla, and Rosen. Democrats, how are you this bad at this? Seriously, how are you this bad at this? You have a tyrant, a dictator taking over this country. This is fascism sliding in fast and hard. And you guys are like, well, I'm against fascism, but you know what? I think this stable coin thing is a really winner idea. I just don't know what to do with the Democratic Party anymore. There's no integrity. There's no spine. There's no line in the sand. There always seems to be a Democrat. Kushner's dad, a Democrat voted for Kushner's dad to become an ambassador to France, one of our better allies. How are you guys this inept? How? I mean, seriously, how did this happen? I kind of know. I mean, it's the long, as I've said, they when all the moderate Republicans left the Republican Party because they got pushed out because they were going MAGA, the Democrats are like, come on in here. You don't have to pledge allegiance to our policies or platform at all. And now you've got basically the moderate Republicans pulling the Democratic Party into this. That's what you've got here. That's when Cory Booker is voting for Kushner's dad. That's when you get 16 people voting along for stablecoin so Trump can make a ton of money. These are all moderate Republicans who had no responsibility whatsoever when they joined the Democratic Party to back the Democratic Party platform. And now you need a unified front, and you guys are an absolute cluster F. An absolute cluster F. You guys could put on your damn pants without shooting yourself in the foot 20 damn times. Because you don't think that any of this matters. That you can just come out with some sort of populism later on and that everyone will forgive you. No. The Democratic Party needs a full-scale change at this point to find people that want to be Democrats and not just lapdogs for the right. It is the Matt McNeil Show.
The Stronger Together Pride Benefit Concert and Dance Party is coming to the Granada Theater in Uptown on Thursday, May 30th, and it's one night with a whole lot of heart. Hosted by Nina D'Angelo, this 21-plus event features live music from Ryan Cabrera and a high-energy dance floor driven by DJ Shannon Blowtorch. It's an incredible celebration, but it's also a fundraiser with a whole lot of impact. This year, Twin Cities Pride is facing a $200,000 funding gap after losing major sponsors. This event is a powerful way for the community, supporters, allies, and everyone who believes in Pride to step up and help close the gap. There are multiple ticket options available from general admission to premium experiences. So however you show up, you're making a difference. Presented with support from the Car Guy Concierge. Find tickets and event info at tcpride.org. That's tcpride.org. Celebrate, support, and help power what comes next because we are stronger together.
I'll never forget. I was driving my Sienna from Rudy Luther Toyota, and I was hit at 35 miles an hour, rear-ended square flush. If not for the structural integrity of my Sienna, I wouldn't be here right now. There's a lot I can say about Rudy Luther Toyota, about their fantastic service department and their great selection, but being able to say your car saved my life is the best endorsement I can make. Toyotas from Rudy Luther Toyota are my highest recommendation. Get one today and tell them me, Matt McNeil, told you to stop on in. Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Greg Bakken here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had. Made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Warm weather is here. Maybe you're getting ready for a graduation party over at the house. There's a lot coming up as summer nears. Your house isn't ready, so that's why you need to call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res right now. Zero Res can handle every surface in your home: carpets, tile and grout, hardwood, laminate, stone, upholstery, rugs, and air ducts. Zero Res has both been out to my house and out here at AM 950 in our studios in recent months. They did such a fantastic job. They were on time, professional, and courteous. They got the stains out that we didn't think would come out here at the station. This month, get 3 rooms Zero Resified from Minnesota's #1 carpet and air duct cleaner and take 20% off all services. That's right, 20% off all services. But you need to go to ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 9520-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. 20% off all services all month. That's Zero Res. Backward or forward spells the same.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. This is why, and by the way, yeah, just going back, David Hogg's right. Kat Abu-Ghazaleh is right. There's just this idea that, I guess we're going to let them win again. And if I can say, in 2018 and 2020 and 2022, I'm having I'm going back and thinking about a lot of that. And I'm saying to myself, did the Democrats really win, or did they basically just take advantage of the fact that the Republicans were so bad in all of those cases that they basically were able to stave off problems? This whole thing, there has to be a wholesale change within the Democratic Party, and that there should be at least 10 tentpole issues that, unless you agree with, say, 8 or 9 of them, you can't be part of the Democratic Party. I've said this for years. You cannot have a guy like Colin Peterson, who used to be the Democrat in the Minnesota 7 district, which was the most conservative district held by a Republican, and Bernie Sanders in the same party. Those are two ideologically opposite people, and yet we were both, they're Democrats, and they're not. And, and yes, this might mean saying goodbye to some Democrats who are these moderate Republicans who basically use the Democratic Party to get elected because they couldn't win in the Republican Party. But I would rather say goodbye to them and have people that, if I'm going to lose, I'd rather lose with people who are actually Democrats, as opposed to, losing with people who are moderates, or even worse, like with Angie Craig, having a moderate who said, I can't stand the Democrats, vote for me, the Democrat, paraphrasing, but pretty close. That's what she said, that was her campaign, and then acting like you need to be more like me when Harris was 4 times more like you. It's just ugly. It's just ugly. I could go with the Walmart story because, as I said, when Donald Trump said, Walmart, you need to absorb all these tariffs. Walmart, no. Walmart just came out and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to we can't do that. And I will say this, I didn't think the margins were as tight for Walmart. It is. I think that's one of the things as they look at their profit margins, part of that is the size of the company. But at the same time, and they do make a lot of money. Let's not make an argument here. But yeah, no, they're not gonna risk their profits to cover Trump's caboose. That's just not going to happen. But one thing, if I can, I want to make sure I bring up a story here that would it's just one of these stories that, in a normal time, this might be 2 or 3 days on my show. But nowadays, I've got to almost do a drive-by on these things because it really is just, there's so much coming. But this is an important one. Colorado oil and gas companies have pumped at least 30 million pounds of secret chemicals into the ground over the past 18 months without making legally required disclosures, according to a new analysis. 30 million pounds? That is in spite of a first-in-the-nation rules requiring operators and their suppliers to list all chemicals used in drilling and extraction, while also banning any use of PFAS's forever chemicals in oil and gas sites. Since the transparency law took effect in July of 2023, operators have fracked 1,114 sites across the state of Colorado. But as of May 1st, chemical disclosures have not been filed for 675 of them, more than 60% in total of the analysis says. Chevron, the world's third biggest fossil fuel company by market cap, is by far the most serious offender of this, operating about 375, more than half of the non-compliant wells. We thought that the Colorado law was going to break through the culture of secrecy that surrounds the use of potentially toxic chemicals in oil and gas production, said Dusty Horwitz, an attorney and researcher who is the lead author in the analysis and is based on public disclosures. But the lack of compliance has left the secrecy in place, putting people's health at risk. The report released Tuesday by the environmental groups, Physicians for Social Responsibility, Physicians for Social Responsible Colorado, Frack Tracker Alliance, and the Colorado Sierra Club, was shared exclusively with The Guardian. In a statement to The Guardian, Chevron spokesperson Paula Beasley said that Chevron is already disclosing all of its fracking fluid ingredients and are not trade secrets, and argued that the responsibility to disclose trade secret chemicals ultimately lies with the ingredient suppliers, not with the companies who use them. That's going to be an interesting argument. So who are, and my guess is going to be is they don't want to release who the suppliers of the ingredients are. So there's your catch-22. In order to drill wells and extract minerals, fossil fuel operators pump huge volumes of pressurized liquid into the earth to fracture the rock or bedrock, simulating the release of trapped oil and gas. Basically, they're creating mini earthquakes. These fluids are mostly water and sand by volume, but they also contain industrial chemicals, including biocides, suffragants, and lubricants. And boy, oh boy, are they delicious in the water table. And by the way, this is just, we all can see, I mean, we all see it, right? I mean, you all see the environmental tragedy that's screaming at us at 100 miles an hour with its doors wide open, right? This is the age of Trump. We have laws in place. We're supposed to have this. And look how belligerent Chevron is being, saying, it's not our responsibility to tell you what we're putting into the ground. That's the supplier of the ingredients. And by the way, we're probably not going to let you know who that supplier is, but still, you should find that out if you can, which we're not going to tell you. So I can tell you this right now. They're putting something, if it was nothing, they would have told you right away. If it was something compliant, something not dangerous, they would say, oh yeah, that was water and sand. That's what we're using. We're just using water and sand. Here's the grit, here's the gang, here's our suppliers, there you go. They didn't do that, did they? Now, there comes a point we have to ask the question of MAGA voters in rural America. How stupid are you guys? and I kind of do mean that. How stupid are you? You guys sit and bloviate about a transgender athlete in your kids' sports. That gets you fired up. But you can't drink the water out of the tap in your house. In a lot of communities, you can't even take a shower in your house because the amount of toxins and chemicals in the water is dangerous to you to even allow to touch your skin. You do this, and that is affecting you every day. But they get you to look past all that and only focus on transgender athletes. You guys need to explain that to me because they are screwing you guys over. All right? Chicago, Seattle, talk to you tomorrow. Minneapolis, St. Paul, hour 2 up next.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950. I want to tell you about a better, more environmentally friendly way to care for your lawn with Natural Lawn. Natural Lawn has been treating Minnesota lawns for more than 20 years with organic-based natural products that feed the soil without unnecessary chemicals. That means an envy-worthy, healthier lawn that's safer for your family and your furry friends. Natural Lawn has no contracts and is 100% satisfaction guaranteed. So let Natural Lawn handle your lawn care so you can enjoy your lawn. More at naturallawn.com.
Cafe Latte offers made-from-scratch soups, salads, sandwiches, and mouth-watering desserts.
So come check out their pizza and wine bar, or get a treat from the bakery made fresh daily. Plus, you can still do online ordering and takeout, along with gift cards. Just go to cafelatte.com and choose from their ever-changing selection of award-winning salads, sandwiches, and soups. Cafe Latte is located off Victoria and Grand and online at cafelatte.com.
It's Brad Friedman, host of the Bradcast, weeknights at 7 on AM 950. KTNF, St. Louis Park, Minneapolis, St. Paul, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. President Trump made a trip to Capitol Hill today to implore House Republicans to drop their fights and pass his big tax cuts bill.
That was a meeting of love, let me tell you. It lasted more than an hour, and the president says the GOP has unbelievable unity. I think we're going to get everything we want. But it's unclear the sweeping bill has enough support, with holdout conservatives insisting on bigger federal program cuts to offset the tax cuts. A senior White House official says the president made clear he's losing patience. But
I'm not losing patience. We're ahead of schedule.
Still, with Pete Aguilar and all Democrats against the Republican package,
they are willing to inflict pain on millions of Americans.
GOP leaders have nearly no votes to spare. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was also on Capitol Hill, where she was asked for a definition of a constitutional provision.
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right
let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
Habeas
right
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
Senator Maggie Hassan followed.
Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people.
Adding,
the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told the Senate Foreign Relations Committee,
I want you to know what the intent of the changes are. It is not to dismantle American foreign policy, and it is not to withdraw us from the world. Because I just hit 18 countries in 18 weeks. That doesn't sound like much of a withdrawal. And I see some of these foreign ministers, including individuals from Ukraine, more than I've seen my own children.
Russia launched more than 100 drones at Ukraine overnight, the EU imposing fresh sanctions on Moscow. Meantime, Israel pressing its latest military offensive in Gaza. Health officials say airstrikes killed at least 85 Palestinians. On Wall Street, stocks closed lower. This is AP News.
How did Babbel become the award-winning language learning app? We thought of you. All of you. Take Sierra. As a visual learner, she uses Babbel's wordplay videos.
Today I'll share a quick lesson on shopping in French.
Merci beaucoup. Malcolm is a listening learner, so he checks with Babbel's speech recognition to be
Precio.
However you learn, Babbel makes it easy. Save up to 50% on your Babbel subscription at Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
The coolest summer starts at Target with up to 50% off select Sun Squad pool and outdoor toys and 20% off select favorite day treats with Target Circle. Discover inflatable pools and outdoor toys that'll surely make a big splash this season, while you keep it cool and sweet with the most shareable cookies and frozen snacks under the sun. Hurry! Now through Memorial Day, save up to 50% on select Sun Squad toys and 20% on select favorite day treats with Target Circle, only at Target.
Hi, I'm Peter Solak.
And I'm Adam Ostrowski.
We are here at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces to talk about outdoor fires. Sitting around a fire is the oldest, most basic form of human activity.
What's new is in the way fire is burned. We can show you how to burn cleaner with a lot less smoke.
The radiant heat and light from an open fire is unmatched. It kindles our spirits and connects us to the outdoors. And now it's easier to experience and enjoy.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces sells and installs wood and gas burning fire pits and fireplaces. Let us help you experience an outdoor fire without all the smoke.
Come see the many ways you can enjoy a fire outdoors.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces has over 35 working wood and gas units on display at the corner of East Franklin and Riverside Avenue in Minneapolis. More information at woodlandstoves.com. Find the fire that works for you. Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
This June, Twin Cities Gay Men's Chorus serves Diva Worship for their Leading Ladies Divas of Broadway Pride concert. Feel the heat, the passion, the undeniable power of music that sets your soul on fire. It's the electric energy of 180 voices, bold, unapologetic, and dripping with Broadway brilliance. The dates are June 21st and 22nd at the Ordway. Get your tickets today at tcgmc.org. That's tcgmc.org. It's entertainment worth coming out for.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for rainy conditions throughout today with a high near 45. Tonight, more rain with a low around 44. And Wednesday, rain with a high near 51. Don't just mow your lawn, love it. Natural Lawn's organic-based treatments have been creating greener, safer lawns for over 30 years. With expert soil testing and no contracts, you get healthier grass and fewer chemicals. Plus, cleanup is part of every visit. Go barefoot this summer. Start at naturallawn.com. Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Hour number 2 of the show here on your Tuesday. Matt and Brett, we have got a lot to get to this hour. One of the stories that we're going to be touching on here in just a little bit is a story that broke, of course, last week here. Lola Perpich, the wife of Rudy Perpich, former governor, passed away at 94. We're going to talk about Rudy Perpich and Lola. We'll talk about that with the author of the book Perpich, a Minnesota original. That's Ben Shire. He's going to be joining us here in just a little bit, and then also I got Cooligan coming up here. So I gotta. This is just precious. Brett, we got a new ranking of the 100 top biggest companies in the country on which one's the best one, has the best reputation, which one's has the worst one. And I think another reason why Elon Musk might have been dumping out of this is that his company X and SpaceX there with Twitter, it ranks at 98 out of 100 as far as liked companies.
Well, there's still 2 more below them.
Take a guess on the other 2.
Let's see. So you said Elon Musk, or not Elon. You said Twitter and
SpaceX.
SpaceX have already been taken up.
Yeah, they're
Tesla.
Well, that's all the
Okay.
Elon Musk crap fest. Yes.
Oh, God, I got to go. Maybe like some sort of cigarette company or something like that, or maybe Comcast. I know the cable companies aren't always popular.
No. The 99th worst was the Trump Organization.
Oh, how did I not think of that? Yeah.
And number 100, Spirit Airlines.
Oh.
He's barely better than Spirit Airlines.
I'd take Spirit Airlines over Donald Trump or any Elon Musk company.
Sad news. George Wendt passed away. Norm from Cheers. Oh gosh. And one of the funnier guys too. Just sad. Someone posted this. What's new, Norm? Terrorists. They've taken over my stomach and they're demanding beer. He had the best one he ever did was it's a dog eat dog world and I'm wearing milk bone underwear. Oh gosh. George Wendt from Cheers passing away. 952-946-6205. So okay, we got a lot to get to here. I've got to quickly go through a few of the things that happened here in regards to the bills that did get passed and not get passed. And I know that Cooligan and Brett, you guys are going to talk about this a little bit later on. Here are some things that did pass. DWI reforms, the bill that substantially strengthens Minnesota drunken driving laws following the Park Tavern tragedy last year, did pass with broad bipartisan support. So I think we all can say we should be somewhat glad that indeed did pass through. I'm very happy to see that one. And once again, when that did go through, I was very praising of that. The closing of the Stillwater prison, besides some pushback from Republican lawmakers striking the deal behind closed door, both the House and the Senate agreed to legislation that enables the state to close the largest prison. It's 111 years old. So yeah, it's at this point, it's a historic building at that, and you're trying to do a prison in a historic building. I don't think that's a really good idea. School unemployment insurance, Republicans sought unsuccessfully to roll back the hourly school worker unemployment passed in 2023. But basically, they're going to redirect funds from the North Star commuter line. What was that? The one that's going to run to Duluth. They're going to redirect some of that money from that over to there. Here's the things that failed. Oh, by the way, pension improvements as well. Minnesota lawmakers voted to improve teachers' career rule, allowing them to retire at age 60 with lower early retirement penalties, so long as they have at least 30 years of experience. Sports betting did fail. That likely will not come back up again. The Minnesota Senate Committee rejected a proposal to legalize sports betting, preventing it from being taken up by the Senate floor. So that's pretty much not going to happen. The Office of Inspector General, lawmakers consider several bills meant to root out fraud from the largest pandemic areas. One was perpetrated in Minnesota. A bipartisan bill meant to establish an officer of Inspector General didn't make it through the legislature by Monday. it more than likely is not going to make it through at all. Social media company tax increase. Democrats wanted to make that happen, where it'd be basically if you had more than 1 million Minnesota users, you were taxed $165,000 plus 50 cents per month per every user over 1 million users. Nuclear moratorium repeal, that we're going to be talking about that. We're going to try to get that passed. That did not get passed as well. Funding for stadiums also did not get passed. I don't think the current makeup out there really has much appetite for that. Here's the one that's really kind of surprising. This one didn't get passed. Unemployment for the Iron Range. Minnesota House members voted unanimously to extend it, but it kind of died in the Senate and never got picked up over there. My guess is they'll try to make that one happen, but they're saying that's probably not going to happen here. On the to-do list, so these are things which they're expecting to get some sort of resolution and passed. Whether or not there's going to be health care for undocumented immigrants, that's the biggest conflict the legislature had this session, was offering Minnesota care to undocumented immigrants. The Democratic blowback appeared to imperil the deal, which didn't get a vote before lawmakers adjourned. So we'll have to see if that happens. The transportation bill, the Transportation Budget Conference Committee worked through some of the initial differences last week, but work has since stalled. Aaron Murphy told reporters Monday that Republican co-chair of the House Transportation Committee, John Koznick, has tried adding new conditions and earmarks that didn't have any business in this year's transportation bill. House Speaker Lisa Demuth replied that the House Republicans are absolutely not holding a single thing up. It does sound like, though, they did indeed add a bunch of stuff at the last second to try to, try to Kurt doubt their way through it, and the Senate caught it, and they're not going to go do that. Bonding package. Legislators did get a bill out to fund road, bridge, and other infrastructure projects across the finish line before it adjourned. Communities across Minnesota are hoping the state funds to help clean up drinking water, take care of other needs. That's probably going to get passed fairly quickly. Tax changes. The House and Senate each have advanced lengthy tax bills, but they have yet to even convene a conference committee to reconcile the differences between the two. The House bill, for example, would create a free alternative to TurboTax for state income taxes, while the Senate version would not. You're going to have to work that one out. Paid family leave. Top lawmakers struck a deal to decrease slightly the cap on payroll tax businesses must pay to fund Minnesota paid family leave program, which is set to begin in January. Republicans had sought to delay a rollback of the program, citing concerns from businesses groups. We were unable to get any more substantive legislation through. The payroll tax, which is vary from year to year, would be capped at 1.1% rather than 1.2%. Lawmakers agree on the compromise struck on Walz and the legislative leaders. And once again, that's the other thing is you can say as much as you want to about Walz or about the House and the Senate not agreeing, but Walz actually has the final say on all this stuff. And if Walz doesn't sign off on it, he's not going to be there. So that's the power of the governor's office. The governor is going to get his wish list done, and then it's up to him to determine whether or not the other stuff is tolerable. So when this does happen, I don't know. I mean, they're doing work groups. They can't officially meet because they're out. So they kind of use, I guess, just a different. They've got the thesaurus out, so they're using a different term to make sure that they don't. And my guess is they're not meeting in the Capitol building. They're meeting someplace else. But they've broken down into work groups to try to hammer these deals out. My guess is, I got to tell you, they're not nearly as far apart as I thought they'd be. I thought nothing was going to get passed this year, or very little. It seems like they're fairly close, that this is really the sausage making. It will be interesting to see what the transportation bill, maybe what I'll do is tomorrow I'll take some time to research the transportation bill a little bit and find out what these Republicans are trying to add on without going through the proper channels in the House bill to see what exactly that is, because once again, that seems to be a little bit of a logjam. 952-946-6205. Like I said, quick update on this. Why? Because you're going to get a lot more of it right now. Patrick Cooligan is from the Minnesota Reformer. He's going to be talking about a lot of the end of session stuff with Brett right here on AM 950.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Brett Johnson joining you here on this Tuesday afternoon. And as usual on Tuesdays, we are joined by the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. That's Patrick Cooligan, as we're going to be talking about a couple of major topics today. And one, of course, as you may have guessed it, is the end of session, as we're going to be talking about budget negotiations and what's on tap in the special session. Plus, we'll be talking about a column about who shares the blame on the DFL side for these cuts to Minnesota Care, and whether we are blaming the wrong people for these cuts to Minnesota Care that we could potentially be seeing in the special session. So again, lots to talk about today. Patrick, thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Always a pleasure. So let's start off talking about the end of session, because the Minnesota legislature adjourned without passing a full 2-year budget, which of course has set the stage for a special session. Now, major bills on education, healthcare, and taxes still remain unresolved, and the reformer has been covering the end of session drama and what lies ahead. So let's go ahead and get into it. So what are some of the major areas where lawmakers are still needing to find areas of agreement? Are there some areas that I mentioned that are closer than others, or are we still largely pretty far apart on a lot of these budget areas?
Well, unfortunately, we're in the dark a little bit here because they are conducting these negotiations behind closed doors. And with respect to transparency, that's only going to get worse as now they're no longer in session. So if you look at the legislative calendar, you'll see nothing there. But they will actually be they're calling them working groups. Again, we don't know when or where they're meeting. They've made some commitment to try to stream them, but the public's really in the dark. It's not a great way to do democracy, in my view. But you pointed out a few of the areas, education, health, and human services. These are the biggest and most substantial areas, and also the most problematic in terms of coming to a compromise. Education, K-12 education alone is about 40% of the budget, and then health and human services is another significant chunk. The governor Tim Walz, it has been looking to make cuts to health and human services in order to bring the state back into some structural balance. Because of our aging population and the increasing cost of taking care of folks with disabilities and who are getting older, that's been a real big cost driver. And so the House and Senate, the House being controlled equally by Republicans and Democrats, 67-67, they have some ideas about how to cut health and human services, whereas the Senate have different ideas. And so they're trying to come together on a compromise. The leaders have given the lawmakers who are working on these issues a deadline, essentially saying, figure this out. I think they're saying Wednesday. Otherwise, you might have to work through the weekend. So hopefully that's motivation. But a special session is coming, and hopefully they can wrap it all up.
Yeah, well, hopefully that would be motivation, being that they would lose their long weekend if they do have to go into a special session that would, of course, last through Memorial Day. But one of the ways, as you mentioned, that they're going to try to prevent having a special session is what's called these working groups. And I want to learn a little bit more about these and how they work, since they're technically not part of the Minnesota State Legislature when they're in session. And as I understand it, largely rank and file members are not part of these working groups. It's largely just leadership, correct? So as we've probably seen in the past, this could largely just be, well, leadership from both parties that are going to be negotiating in these working groups. Or do I have it wrong? I'm just curious the structure on how these work, since they're technically not part of the legislature.
Well, when the House and Senate pass bills that are different, they generally always are. They'll try to they need to work out the differences and come up with compromise language, and they do that in what's called a conference committee, and that is made up of some senators, some members of the House, usually both parties. So they're just going to continue in that format, but the legislature's not in session, so they're not going to call it a conference committee. They're going to call them working groups. Conveniently for the legislature, they've exempted themselves from a lot of the open meeting laws that apply to every other governmental jurisdiction in the state. So that's how they can do this.
Yeah, so as you said, unfortunately, the transparency laws don't necessarily apply. So yeah, some of these negotiations, as you kind of mentioned, will be taking place behind closed doors, since technically it's not part of the Minnesota legislature's regular session. I have another angle I want to tackle with this, and that has to do with what Governor Walz is trying to portray this session as, because he's trying to portray this as a relatively functional session compared to what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C. And do you think that message necessarily resonates, or are Minnesotans just going to see a legislature that, well, largely didn't finish their work on time?
Yeah, I don't think the public is paying very close attention to the Minnesota legislature. That's just a general rule. A lot of lawmakers are deluded about that. But I do think the public would be alerted to dysfunction if the government shut down. And so that would happen if they can't get this thing done by June 30th. But there doesn't seem to be any appetite by anybody to do that. Republicans are often, have been interested in negotiating so hard that a shutdown is threatened. They don't have any interest in that. And despite the flare-up last week among some progressive Democrats about a cutback in Minnesota Care, which is a health insurance program for the working poor, they also have made it clear they're not going to shut the government down over it. So I think that he's what he's doing is he's setting a very low bar, which is passing a budget to keep the government open, and they do appear. It does look like they're gonna pass that low bar.
So just in case they don't end up passing that low bar, at what point does a shutdown become a realistic possibility? Is there any date we should necessarily be kind of watching for whether they have an agreement by this time or not?
Well, they have to send out furlough notices to state employees on June 1st. I think that's contractual. So that's sort of a soft deadline for themselves. They don't want to have to do that. It's bad for morale and it's disruptive to state employees. But I think in the most recent in 2021, when we had divided government, it was Republican controlled Senate, they went all the way pretty deep into June. But they managed to get it done. There's really no reason why, especially since they're not really that far apart. Walz and the Democrats are resigned to the fact that there's not going to be new revenue. And Republicans are resigned to the fact there's not going to be really draconian cuts or tax cuts. So what they're fighting over now, it's relatively minor. It certainly can have big repercussions for the people affected. I don't mean to minimize that, but the two sides just aren't that far apart where they wouldn't be able to get this done relatively quickly.
Well, make sure you keep following Minnesota Reformer and MinnesotaReformer.com for the latest on the budget negotiations as we try to avert a government shutdown and reach a budget agreement here at the Minnesota State Legislature. I want to focus now on a column you wrote titled, "Get Mad About Minnesota Care, but Walz and DFL legislative leaders are not the real culprits." As we were alluding to, this is a topic that some progressive DFLers are not happy about, with some potential cuts to Minnesota Care as we continue to negotiate that budget agreement. That is a big flashpoint that has emerged because a deal could potentially strip health coverage from thousands of undocumented adults in Minnesota through our Minnesota Care program. But as you talk about, get mad about not necessarily Walz and the DFL legislative leaders, but the real culprits behind the cuts to Minnesota Care that could happen in a budget agreement. But first, let's talk about what's at stake if some 15,000 Minnesotans will be kicked off Minnesota Care, because certainly that means 15,000 Minnesotans that won't have access to health insurance, but hospitals could also be hurt majorly by these cuts as well. So let's talk about the ramifications if these cuts to Minnesota Care do end up going through in an agreement.
Yeah, I mean, anytime we have uninsured folks, it's bad for everybody because those, but especially obviously the people who are without insurance, because they may have a chronic condition that goes untreated, it gets worse. They don't go to preventative care, and so they have something that could, if it had been caught early, would be simple, but it gets more complicated if they wait. They're forced to go to emergency departments to get care. They don't have that relationship with a doctor that I think so many of us value. So it's certainly bad for them. It's also bad for the rest of us. They have a communicable disease, which they give to friends and family, and it spreads. The hospitals have uncompensated care because folks they can't afford to pay these big hospital bills. Who ends up paying? Well, it gets shifted onto either taxpayers or to those of us with commercial insurance, and then our insurance rates go up. These workers who don't have health insurance are less productive in the workplace, and so it's just sort of bad for everybody. But this is like the primary Republican policy goal. This is their number one goal, as far as I can tell. And and so this, from what I'm told, there were really significant sort of Chamber of Commerce-esque offers made to Republicans. What I mean is that on issues like paid family leave and earned sick and save time, the stuff that the Chamber of Commerce has been pushing for, this was offered to Republicans, and they turned it all down. This is their number one issue. They do not want undocumented people on Minnesota Care, and so in order to get a budget that is necessary for everybody who uses government services for the next 2 years, which is basically everybody. We're talking schools, roads, parks, everything, social services, healthcare for everyone else. They had to agree to this provision. They did manage to keep Minnesota Care for undocumented, for the children of these folks who were undocumented. That was something that they were able to protect in the negotiation.
Now, of course, the ramifications from this is that some progressives, like you talk about in your column, like Jason Chavez, are already signaling potential political consequences for lawmakers who are supporting this potential agreement. Now, do you think this budget deal will lead to serious intra-party divisions or primary challengers next year for members of the Minnesota legislature?
Well, yeah, this is what Chavez was implying, that there would be a primary challenge to, for instance, Aaron Murphy, the Senate Majority Leader. And Chavez doesn't understand St. Paul politics, because that's not going to happen. And even if it did, Murphy would win in a rout. She has a lot of state workers who are her constituents. And also St. Paul politics are far different than Minneapolis politics. And the politics of the legislature are very different from the politics of Minneapolis City Councils, because there's Republicans at the legislature. In fact, they share control of the House. And that's sort of the basic reality that Walz, Hortman, and Murphy were having to confront. And it's not like it was their idea to take healthcare away from folks. They had to do what they had to do for the sake of passing a 2-year budget. They didn't want to risk a shutdown. And so to me, I thought this was a misplaced attack. The attack ought to go on the folks who have made this their chief policy priority, and that's Minnesota Republicans.
And finally, you do point out that several major
we're never going to go home, I don't think, with without this change to Minnesota Care, because if they did, they did face serious threat of primary challenges in their districts. I think that's, you know, the nativism in the party and the turn against immigrants is so fierce, as look at their standard bearer, and look what they're doing with attempting the mass deportation and so forth, that it was completely politically untenable for Republicans to go home to their districts without getting something on this issue. Otherwise, they would have faced primaries. And so I do think the threat of shutdown was real if they hadn't gotten their way on Minnesota Care.
Yeah, and as we talked about, of course, this can happen when Republicans do at least share some form of power, which, of course, they do in the State House of Representatives with that even 67-67 tie. So they do have some leverage there. Well, you can read more about that column over at MinnesotaReformer.com, again, titled Get Mad About Minnesota Care, but Walz and DFL legislative leaders are not the real culprits. Find that over at MinnesotaReformer.com, and make sure you go there for the latest on the budget negotiations as we try to finalize that 2-year state budget and avoid a government shutdown through a special session that will be coming in the next few days. We have been speaking with Patrick Houlihan, who is the editor-in-chief of the Minnesota Reformer. As always, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Always a pleasure.
All right, let's take a break and send things back over to Matt McNeil on AM 950.
Hey, it's Patrick for Zero Res. Warm weather is here. Maybe you're getting ready for a graduation party over at the house. There's a lot coming up as summer nears. Your house isn't ready, so that's why you need to call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res right now. Zero Res can handle every surface in your home: carpets, tile and grout, hardwood, laminate, stone, upholstery, rugs, and air ducts. Zero Res has both been out to my house and out here at AM 950 in our studios in recent months. They did such a fantastic job. They were on time, professional, and courteous. They got the stains out that we didn't think would come out here at the station. This month, get 3-room Zero Resified from Minnesota's #1 carpet and air duct cleaner and take 20% off all services. That's right, 20% off all services. But you need to go to ZeroResMinnesota.com or call 9520-RES and ask for the AM 950 special. 20% off all services all month. That's Zero Res. Backward or forward spells the same.
Hennepin History Museum is presenting Hennepin Fest, a women-led music and cultural festival, Saturday, May 31st from 2 until 7 p.m. at Washburn Fair Oaks Park. This is a free event celebrating the diverse history and culture of Hennepin County, highlighting performances by local women artists, including DJ MC Diane, Connie Evingston, Annie Mack, None Above, and Maria Issa. There will also be a vendor village featuring local vendors, food, and family-friendly activities. Saturday, May 31st from 2 until 7 p.m. at Washburn Fair Oaks Park. It's Hennepin Fest. Go to hennepinhistory.org for more information.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. You know, over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
Hey, it's Tom. Even though I don't live in Minnesota, I've spent enough time there to know how quickly the weather can change. One day it's sunny and the next you're preparing for severe weather. That's where solar plus battery storage from All Energy Solar comes in. With this power-saving combination, you'll gain energy independence and stay connected through blackouts, emergencies, or extreme weather. Solar plus battery storage is perfect for rural areas where power outages are more common, or for anyone tired of worrying about rolling blackouts. And with plenty of incentives still available, All Energy Solar will work with you to make sure you get the most savings possible. For over 15 years, All Energy Solar has been a trusted partner in helping Minnesotans move to affordable, renewable energy. They offer the best battery technology and their own licensed electricians and contractors to ensure top quality installation. So stop paying the utility company and start generating and saving your own power. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for rainy conditions throughout today with a high near 45. Tonight, more rain with a low around 44. And Wednesday, rain with a high near 51. Looking for a cozy neighborhood bar and restaurant in Minneapolis? Nightingale serves delicious American classics like their famous Nightingale Burger, ginger tamari chicken wings, and more. Open daily 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. with takeout available. Visit nightingalempls.com for details.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. Good to have you with us today. Last week, we had the word that we lost Dolores Perpich, Lola Perpich, the wife of Rudy Perpich, the long-serving governor, joining us right now to talk about her impact, her life, as well as also talk about his book, Perpich, a Minnesota original, is Ben Shire. Ben is the former two-term mayor of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, former Bush Fellow and a New Deal leader. Received a master's of public administration degree from the Hubert A. Humphrey Institute as well. And he's kind enough to join us today to talk about Lola and Rudy Perpich overall. Hello there. Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on, Matt. It's great to be with you.
My pleasure. Now, first of all, I mean, you get into the book. I mean, is there a connection between you and Rudy Perpich, or just were you inspired by him as the governor? Because once again, he served for a long time as governor.
Yeah, longest serving governor. No, so I didn't have a personal connection. I just the real quick background story. I was serving as mayor. I got a call from a friend of mine, mayor of Bemidji, Rita Albrecht. She said, "You need to come to Bemidji. There's a group of mayors from the Twin Cities who want to come up and just talk about the rural-urban divide and how we can bridge it. And no policy, no partisanship, just relationships." And so that really started me realize that was such an important issue for our state. And I'm someone who loves history. So I started down this track and anyway, ended up meeting Lori Sturdivant on that journey. Many of your listeners are going to recognize that name. I think Minnesota's foremost historian, in my opinion. And so I've struck up a friendship with Lori, told her I wanted to write a book about Minnesota's history of overcoming that rural-urban divide, and wrote an outline and told her stories I wanted to tell. And she said, "You're missing one really important story, and that's the story of Rudy Perpich." And she was right. And the more I learned about Rudy, the more I just really was fascinated by his story. I think he's one of not only the most remarkable politicians we've had in our state, but I think the story itself is something that's truly amazing. So fell in love with the story and wrote the book.
And I should mention, there is a family connection I have to the Perpich family. There's when we were up at Esquagama and the Waback Gilbert area, there were a few houses down from us. We knew each other. And as a matter of fact, Rudy Perpich, I think, so he was governor, took a break, then he was governor again. And in 1983, he flew down we were living in Georgia at that time, had dinner with my dad, who they knew, and encouraged him to bring my father to bring his medical company he was going to start back to Minnesota and start it there. And so I thought that was kind of, it's kind of one of those things where he definitely worked on a lot of different levels. I think a lot of politicians didn't work on. And and he also had such great friendships. And as you talk rural and urban divide, he was a guy that could basically go into any situation and be able to relate immediately to whoever he was talking to.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you hear time and time again. Like, he was such an authentic person who connected on a real level with people. And a lot of it was around jobs, right? And so he saw, the visit that he made down to Georgia, was it right, Matt?
Yeah.
So Mark Dayton, Governor Mark Dayton, writes the foreword to the book. And in there, he tells some stories, but I think he tells the story that, or he just says, there's nowhere that Governor Perpich would not go in order to bring jobs to Minnesota, right? He understood, and I think that part of his connection, and that's part of the reason that I wrote the book, is because I think there's a lot of things that, not only it's a great story to look back, but there's so much that we can learn from Governor Perpich in our politics of today, and some of the things we're missing. And Rudy, for sure, it was jobs, right? When he came back in 1982, he was laser focused on an economic message, and it was able to connect across the state, because that's something that resonates with people no matter where they are. So
I can say this about my dad: not the hardest sell. He wanted to come back to Minnesota. He wanted to be back up here. So it was nice. It was nice in the South for a little bit, but we're going back home. Why do you think he had the longevity he had? I mean, we're having this discussion right now about Walz possibly running for a third term. And yet, there's a lot of people that say it's not, that is not some sort of given. I mean, that's just, generally we like to see some level of change. Yet he served for, was it a full 3 terms that he served?
So he was 10 years. So he served out 77 and 78 when Wendell Anderson went to the United States Senate. If people who, so many listeners remember that 78, the Minnesota Massacre, but Wendell Anderson was the governor, stepped aside. Rudy became governor, appointed Wendell to the Senate. And then in 78, Rudy lost. And that loss was, I think, really important in shaping what he would then come back. So he came back 4 years later in 82 and really took on not only he took on the DFL establishment at that time too. Warren Spanish was the endorsed candidate. He was the heir apparent. He was going to be the next governor. And Rudy came back with a message, like I said, a laser focused message on the economy and creating jobs for the entire state of Minnesota. And it was one that he won the primary, and then he was on to the he won the general and served then he served 2 terms. So it was 10 years total. But, that is a long time for a governor, right? Like, I think that, there's lots you can get done, but, as someone who's been in office myself, right? Like, every day, every time you make a decision, there's someone on the other side of that decision. So, I have a lot of respect for what he was able to do. And, people who are in office for that long, it's not easy.
The energy it takes is, it's just, it wears you down. That. I mean, it just, it's a tough job, and people that can do it over and over again, God bless them, because that is a talent. Back then, when we talk about the time he was running, and you're talking about it is a different time. You look at state map after state map after state map in the last 20 years. Blue dot in Minneapolis, St. Paul, blue dot in Duluth, blue dot in Rochester, blue dot in St. Cloud, blue dot in Moorhead, maybe Mankato, and the rest of it's red. And that's not the way it used to be. And I don't think Perpich set that up in any capacity. As a matter of fact, I think he was the last, governor that actually kind of was able to understand the complexities of all of that around. I mean, I guess I don't want to be like that. I don't want to say it like that, but he was able to resonate a lot better than the modern Democratic governors who run out in the outstate areas, or Republican governor candidates can, moderate in metro areas. I mean, what about him was his selling point, do you think, to the public?
Yeah, well, you're right. So in 82, so I'm from Fergus Falls. I served as mayor of Fergus Falls, Otter Tail County. And Rudy is so personal to me in the sense, like, Rudy was the last gubernatorial candidate to win Otter Tail County in 1982, which, if you know the politics out here now, I mean, that's remarkable to think that, that Rudy was able to win Otter Tail County. But again, he did it. There's a story that I heard from so many people. And again, Mark Dayton talks about it a little bit in the forward to the book, but for Rudy, it was the jobs, but it was not simply a slogan or a mantra or even just a job. Like, he understood what went with a job, right? He was able to connect with people on that level, that beyond just providing the necessity for a family, it gives a person dignity, and it gives a community dignity, right? When there's that value, he just truly valued work. And I think a lot of that, Matt, came from the story when he was a child, when he'd come down to the breakfast table, when his dad's lunch pail, super simple. When his dad's lunch pail was on the kitchen table, his dad was working. His dad had a job. He was going to the mines, and his family was taken care of. They had enough to eat. They were taken care of. And when his dad's lunch pail was on the shelf, they didn't. He understood, like, at a very, very basic human level, the importance and value of a job. And I think that he never lost sight of that. And that is something, if you look back through our political history, I mean, that's a connection that people have, regardless of where they live in the state of Minnesota, or even really what their political affiliation is, right? Like, that's something that they can agree on. And people knew, just like your dad down in Georgia, right? Like, they knew Rudy was going to go and do every single thing that he possibly could to bring those jobs to people in Minnesota. And you have to remember too, it was a time in Minnesota that we hadn't, you had the national economic, the biggest downturn in the economy since the Great Depression in the early 80s. So that was one thing. But in Minnesota, prior to that, we had been somewhat shielded from those, the national economic recessions because of agriculture and the mining industries, right? So the rural places, parts of the state, the economy was good. Well, in the early 80s, you had the timber crisis, the timber, agriculture and mining economies were all in the tank. So, I mean, the whole state was it was a tough place, and Rudy was able to connect with those people on a very basic level.
Well, and he understood that a lot better because, and I think this is the tragedy, I think, to a point where we're at. You go into rural communities where 30 years ago, I'd go into the community and there'd be 5 or 6 businesses and there'd be a grocery store and there'd be this. And you go into them town after town after town now, it's empty buildings. And maybe they have a co-op and maybe they have a bar or a restaurant, or maybe there is a gas station in town, but there's not that much. And I think that Perpich understood that it's not just the job and it's not just this, this is the generator of the economy. And if you don't have, not only factories in large metro areas, but factories in these towns and building out there, you don't have the infrastructure that can weather what happens when you have a downturn in the agri sector or the mining sector or the forestry sector. And I think he got that a lot better than I don't think there's a lot of politicians today that understand the need to basically have spread that across the state, because that's what makes a strong state.
Yeah, absolutely. He did. It was from the agricultural economy in the South to the mining industry, the timber. It was across the state, and he was looking for the jobs of the future. He was a visionary. I mean, it was incredible the things that he saw. The Mall of America. They laughed at him and said that would never happen in Minnesota, but he knew that it could. And there were so many examples and so many examples. But yeah, you're right. I think a lot of communities in greater Minnesota over those last 40, 45 years since the time we're talking, they've seen those jobs go away. They've seen their main streets hollow out. They've seen their warehouses, they're empty. They've seen, poverty and addiction in a lot of these communities. Right. Yeah. And I think that's the big, the thing to me is like, we've got one party, the Republican Party has capitalized on that fear, that resentment, that anger that a lot of people have, and they're pointing fingers at other people. And I think that often Democrats don't take the opportunity to really to get at the heart of where that fear and anger and resentment are at, right? It's the value of work in those jobs, and they're not looking for a government handout. They're not looking for, someone to be told, Democrats have vacated the field in a lot of these areas, and we can get back there. I don't mean to be pessimistic, because I think that's one of the reasons I wrote the book. I think there's an example of what Rudy was able to connect with these communities around a simple economic message. And when I say this, Matt, I want to make sure that people don't misunderstand. Rudy also was, he was decades ahead of his time on some of these social issues. He was fighting for equal pay for women teachers in the Hibbing School District back in the 1950s, right? He established, along with his son, was instrumental in that as well. But the Center for Victims of Torture, right? And they appointed the first woman to the Supreme Court in Minnesota. So there's all kinds of social issues that he was doing, right? He was a true progressive, like he was a DFLer. But he was able to do that because he was able to connect with people on an economic message around jobs and around the value of work. And that's something that I think we could learn from, quite honestly.
Very much so. And you can see the ties into Wellstone, even with the an equal tide raises all boats. I mean, it's jobs for everybody and making sure everyone has an equal footing. And that was Rudy. Let's talk a little bit about the passing of Lola. I found it interesting. I think it was you that brought up, is he still the only governor's portrait that has his wife in the portrait with him?
Yeah, and there's a really interesting story there, because and I don't really, honestly, I don't know that, but yeah, when he came back, I mentioned he was governor in 77, 78, and when he came back, the portrait had Lola in him, and they wouldn't hang it at the Capitol, and so that was something. A family was so important to Rudy Perpich and to Lola and to their family, and yeah, he was Lola's in that picture with him. That's the picture that he wanted hanging at the Capitol.
Talk about her impact as the first lady of the state, and while he was governor there. Obviously, there was that close bond, and I think, as you discussed, not only the jobs thing but the equality thing. I mean, there was a lot of interaction between them when it came to running the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that those, from what I've learned, those who knew Rudy and Lola best knew that they were a team all the way back to the first campaigns for school board. They were a team, which is something, like, as someone who's, my wife has been my biggest partner in my campaigns. That's something I just really admire when a family gets into it, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of examples, but the one that comes to my mind is, the Perpich Center for the Arts, the School for the Arts, right? Yes. Like, she was the driving force behind that. And it came out of 1985, Perpich proposed his access to excellence for schools, which was pretty progressive and light years ahead of a lot of where people were at. But anyway, it was open enrollment. And it was the post-secondary enrollment options. And the major piece of that was that School for the Arts. And they had seen what these schools could do for people who maybe didn't connect with a normal teaching environment or school setting. And they'd seen them when they were in Austria. And they knew that there was a lot of people out there who could really blossom if they had the right opportunities. And that was one of Lola's projects that she was really passionate about. And that's the one I love it too, because Lola was so passionate. Of course, Rudy wouldn't give it up. Rudy would not give that up because he knew what it meant to Lola. And together, there's a pretty cool story in the book about how they actually got that passed.
Well, and it's also, you talk about it almost like a dream time, not only jobs, not only equality, but hey, how about we spend money on the arts in our schools and make sure education in the arts is just as important as any other education. As we sit around and see arts getting slashed left and right, I mean, we could definitely use a little bit of the advice of Rudy Perpich at this point. Congratulations on the book here. I mean, this just came on out too. I mean, I'm presuming you're going to be around. Are you going to be doing any book events anywhere nearby here in the Twin Cities?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be at Majors and Quinn tomorrow night, May 21st, 7:00 down to Majors and Quinn. I'm going to be around the state. It's exciting. I'm going to be up at Split Rock Lighthouse. I'm going to be in Ely, and I'm going to be up at the Minnesota Discovery Center. But yeah, tomorrow night, for your listeners, anyone's interested, I love one of my favorite things, Matt, is just like you had the Perpich story. It seems like everywhere I go, someone has a story about how Rudy Perpich or Lola or their family touched their lives, and just love sharing that with people. And so yeah, I'd love for people to come out and tell me their Rudy Perpich story.
He was a great man. She was a great woman as well, and a great family. And I've known them. And yeah, I mean, I can tell you my personal story. He was a fighter for Minnesota, and he succeeded. Perpich, a Minnesota original. Ben Shire is once again the author. He's going to be at Majors and Quinn tomorrow. Make sure you stop on by for that. Ben, thank you very much. Congratulations on the book. And by all means, let's have you back sometime. Okay.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much, Matt.
Take care. Ben Shire, once again, is the author of the book. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Tuesday.
This is Andy Addo, your host of Twin Cities Pride Amplified, inviting you to join us this Saturday at 3 p.m. as we visit with our Director of Programming, Kelsey Alto. June is approaching fast, and we have so many great things planned. We'll run them all down for you, from Cheers to Pride, Family Fun Day, Youth Night, and so much more. We'll give you all the details. That's this Saturday at 3 p.m., right here on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Think your company's safe? Your staff is working from home, right? As I speak, cyber criminals are mounting attacks across the country. Remember, when we're weakest, cyber criminals attack. Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
Rudy Luther Toyota is the dealer you can trust. Go to rudyluthertoyota.com to browse their inventory of new and certified pre-owned vehicles. Style, performance, and reliability. You can find it all at Rudy Luther. With every new and certified pre-owned vehicle, you'll get a Luther Advantage card. Save 10 cents per gallon at the pump and get $6 Works car washes at Holiday Station stores. That's right. You can get a great vehicle and help stretch your budget even further. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Chanhassen Dinner Theaters brings you its most popular show of all time, Grease. You'll hear all your favorite hits from the Broadway musical and the movie. Join the whole gang at Rydell High. We'll sing, we'll dance, we'll bring you back to high school life in the 50s. Poodle skirts, bobby socks, the soda shop, and drive-in movies. Grease, it'll rock your socks off. Order your tickets today. Visit chanhassendt.com.
It is the Matt McNeil Show. And like I said, yeah, I mean, I remember, so I'm a kid. Oh God, how old was I? I was like 12 or 13. And my dad says, the governor of Minnesota is going to be here. Okay. Stay downstairs. Don't say anything. We'll get you a pizza. Okay. The pizza sold it for me. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll stay downstairs. But yeah, he came on out, and it was very much, just coming on down. We're gonna make this work. We're gonna make this work. And my dad, and I will say this. I felt as if it was my dad wanted to go back to Minnesota at that point. I mean, we were only down there for 2 years, and yeah, Georgia's nice and all, but he's a Minnesota boy. And so he came back, and he started his company, Surgeon, ran it here in the country and the city, sold it to another business, stayed on board for a while, and then went and retired. He did he was part of that. And I've actually got in my house some of the kind of a commendation from the governor to my dad for bringing his business back to Minnesota. So yeah, Perpich family is good people. They're good people. And I know that Walz and Dayton do try to work hard to bring this back, but I mean, the question I need the rural parts of this state to ask is that you guys keep voting for Republicans, and the Republicans have done nothing but destroy your towns. There are no jobs out there. The last time you had jobs down there was Rudy Perpich. That's when you had jobs, the Democrats. So you can keep voting for these guys who are not going to deliver for you, or vote for the Democrats and basically say, yeah, I'd like to have my town not be something a little bit more than 20 empty buildings. Please. I cannot tell you my disappointment that the Northern Lights Express rail line from Duluth, it seems to be a casualty of this bipartisan. And I'm trying to understand that this is the sausage making, that, yeah, there were a lot of, and you heard Cooligan talking in there. There were a lot of, progressive principles that they did not cave under, that they basically, they were part of the deal. That was the case, that they kept those, but they had to find some sacrificial lamb, and that ended up being the Northern Lights. Now, it's not completely. They did pull $77 million from funding from the proposed Northern Lights Express line to Duluth, directed towards unemployment as well. And here's what I'm going to say is that, okay, the Aurora, the Borealis line that we have that runs to Chicago, it's packed to the gills. All right. I think we can see what the potential is here. There's a reason why every Republican screams at the top of their head, no one wants this, before they do it, because people do want this. You have the largest university, and I'm not mistaken about this, the largest university in the state outside of the Twin Cities is UMD. So you're going to have a natural automatic line there, plus the amount of people that go for business up there. I keep thinking to myself, you get to the train station, then you have buses that run out to the Iron Range or run up the North Shore. You've created a transit hub. I think that that's a good thing. Duluth is a freaking gem, and I think we should do the best we can to get that connected to the rest of the state. And I'll say this once again. No Republican ever wants to spend money on transportation unless it's paving a wealthy person's neighborhood, because that's just the way they are. They are not about problem solving. They're about problem creating. And I can't stand that. This seems to be creating more problems. And I understand making concessions, but I wish this wasn't one of them. Native Roots Radio is up next. You have a good week, good rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow. Until then, see ya.
The Stronger Together Pride Benefit Concert and Dance Party is coming to the Granada Theater in Uptown on Thursday, May 30th. And it's one night with a whole lot of heart. Hosted by Nina D'Angelo, this 21-plus event features live music from Ryan Cabrera